Okay, welcome to the Strength Club Q&A number 4. I'm Mick Solomons. I'm the developer of the Starting Strength app and Strength Club, and alongside me today I've got Starting Strength coach Alex Koesarie and Wichita Falls Athletic Club coach Rusty Holcomb. G'day, fellas.
How's it going?
Good. So today we're going to be doing something a bit different from the last couple. We're going to be going through some form checks which were submitted by users of the apps, and so let's rip into it. We've got a few interesting ones here. The first one is Dan Hanson. So yep, that's video's playing now.
Okay, so they can see the video on your
Yeah,
end?
the video's playing at the moment. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm playing that. Rusty, how about you go first on these, and then I'll yell at you if I see anything else.
Yeah. Honestly, he's looking pretty good. I looked at this earlier, and I think as the set goes on, his knees start to get a little loose. But he's bending his knees, and he's stopping them right where his toes need to be. He's sitting back. Let's see.
I'm playing it again at my end.
That very last rep, you can see his knees punch forward pretty good. And that's probably got a lot of fatigue going on, but he needs to just hold his knees a little bit better. Maybe a little more hip drive out of the bottom. But honestly, I think these squats look pretty good. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I actually think the stance could stand to be a little bit wider, if anything. Point the toes out a little bit more. It's totally serviceable for right now. But I think he could probably get away with, keeping everything on model, but being a little bit, more vertical. And I would definitely agree with Rusty on more hip drive out of the hole. So the reps that he did, I want to say it was rep 3, where he did have some pretty good hip drive. The bar speed was a lot faster. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, From this angle, it's hard for me to tell really how close the feet are. But yeah, they might be a little bit too close. Just from this angle, it's kind of hard to tell for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think these are pretty good, pretty solid squats.
Yeah, good job, Dan.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So the next one we're looking at is David Mark. David Mark squat. This is the guy that's he's squatting he's got a bunch of wooden chairs set up on coffee tables, and he's got his bar on top of
and a leg length discrepancy.
Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 kids that one of them we were doing the shim, and I eventually took it off because he was shifting really hard, and it kind of fixed that. That is really creative. Looks dangerous as hell.
Yeah, as long as you're doing it confidently. I see a lot of things going on with this. So the biggest thing, and this really applies to all squats, regardless of if you're using R form or not, is that you don't want to give the bar momentum on the way down. You're going to make it heavier than it needs to be. So that looks like a 25, 10. So he's squatting 150 something, I think. If those are 10s on the side too. But you're really dive bombing into the bottom and then trying to catch it. And you're missing depth by about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, So be patient on the way down and trust your hips. And then with that, I would point your toes out and shove the knees out a little bit more too. I think everything's a little bit too far forward, and I think that's a symptom or a consequence of having that wooden plate be under there. And not wanting to have part of your foot on it and part of your foot off of it. So
yeah,
what do you think, Rusty?
I can completely agree with you. He's his speed going down is way too much, and I think that could also be a reason why he's getting too far forward. Is instead of bringing his hips back and holding his knees back, he's just slamming down in the bottom, which are going to get his knees too far forward. If he were to control that speed a little bit more, get a little bit tighter, that 5th rep wouldn't look like that. I think his hips would get him out of the hole a lot better.
Yeah, and I'm very curious as to what the confirmation process was for the leg length discrepancy. I've worked with some people who have had relatively glaring discrepancies, but they've been asymptomatic. So I wonder if he's been doing this preventatively, if he was having hip pain, and if that was kind of a load management thing, or if it was actually some sort of imbalance from the squat, what have you there. But who knows? It doesn't look too bad for me. So
Yeah, as far as the leg lean thing, we've had a couple people at the gym that have it, and Rip is really good at picking that out. And generally, I think there's a little bit more of a tilt to one side. But a lot of people that have it, and he looks like he's got a pretty good shim. They tend to know that they have it from just life. Their gait's a little bit different, and it really depends if the femur or the shin is where that discrepancy is. If he's got a shorter femur, that changes a whole lot of different things. But he just needs to stay tighter.
Any comments on the setup?
It's cool, but it looks dangerous.
Yeah, I've done a similar thing where I've used 2 ladders before in a garage when I haven't had a squat rack. So I mean, I can't criticize them. You do you, man. It's good to keep training.
Yeah, you got to train.
Yeah. No, fair play. Got to train. All right, next one up is Eric Carpenter.
The press.
The press, yeah. The video is not great for this one, but I think you can get a sort of fair idea of this.
All right.
Yeah, Rusty, you go on this one.
Yeah. So he's almost doing a push press. So if you can see at the very beginning, his knees are unlocking, and he's using more of a push up versus his hips going forward and him bouncing the bar down. So he needs to, again, the analogy is you think from your shoulders down to your feet, the muscle like a rubber band, get tight, hips go forward, bar bounces and drives up, and then you stand up hard and shrug. He's not really throwing his hips. He's more of a dipping and then a driving up first. That's the main thing that I'm seeing here. He's got some stuff in the way, and he's pushing out, but that's also probably because he's trying to get around his face.
What do you mean by pushing out there?
The bar is going around his face versus going straight up and then shrugging back. Okay. That's what I'm seeing from here. And again, that's probably because he's not pushing his hips further enough to get his shoulders back and his face out of the way.
Interesting.
Are you not seeing that?
No. So, well, first things, I'm enjoying the old school lifting aesthetic with the cutoff and the gloves. And the next thing is that it's a lot of times it's a consequence of people having like a lot more mass in kind of a belly or a chest area, but he's starting the bar really far forward of midfoot. His elbows are a little bit too far under the bar. And when people are starting with their arms pretty far out, it's almost impossible for them to get a good hip rebound on it because they'll have to pull the bar back in and it's going to cause too much lateral motion for themselves. So I think his starting position is wrong, which is, preventing him from even trying to do the hip drive. So pick your elbows up, try and get that bar kind of right in front of your chin or kind of tuck into your double chin and then try the hip movement again. I think he should be able to have that down because he's summoning with some amount of like spring or, energy from his legs, and that should work itself out on its own. But I think the starting position is the big no-no there. It's just 3 or 4 inches in front of midfoot, and congratulations, it's a strong reverse curl to hold that at that height. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to see Louis C.K.'s making a good comeback.
Yeah, his new special was pretty good.
It was. I liked it. Yeah, I'm a big Louis C.K. fan. Besides the whole sexual harassment stuff, but anyway, let's move on. Josh Needham is coming up next.
Josh Needham. Also, Rusty, did you watch these prior?
No, I had not had a chance to watch these. So.
Okay, good. Same here. So I wanted to unbias myself.
Yeah.
Before we got into these.
Real time.
Yes.
Yeah. So Josh Needham.
Okay. I'll go first on this one. The bar is a little bit too low. And by a little bit, I mean about like 1.25 inches. This is one of those things that happens when people take the cues a little bit too literally. The big one is when he's saying lean over. When we say lean over in the squat, you're punching your head down, Josh. So think about keeping your head over your shoulders and leaning at your hips. Okay, so your torso is a rigid segment. You're rotating at your hips. Lean over there, not reaching forward with your head. The next thing is that, you don't want to swoop past the bar during your unrack to get tighter. You're getting loose and then pulling back into it. The one thing that I like to do for this is to tell people to have the bar touch right at the top of their shirt. That's the first point of contact, and then push into it rather than swooping past it. That way your rack position is going to get to the sufficient level of tightness that it needs to be at. And you won't be pushing it like an inch lower than it needs to be. Yeah, and on the way down, I would say dive bombing a little bit like the last one, and the thoracic extension. It's an in-person coach would be really helpful for this to kind of show you tactily. But there is a lot going on in this one, I would say.
Yeah. The fact that he's bending over so hard is definitely pushing that bar way forward. His knees are punching way forward because all that mass is going forward. He's probably heavy on his toes, and then coming up, he's doing what I would call a stripper squat, where the butt shoots up first, and then he decides to pick his chest up. You want hip drive, but the hip drive has to drive the chest up. It's not bending over and the good morning squat, stripper squat.
The last thing on this one is that it's hard to tell, and it's almost one of the last things that we'll tend to look for on these videos, because most people will obscure it. But his toe angle is a little bit too shallow as well, which is a consequence, or it can be a symptom of his knees having to go really far forward on this. So if you look at the left foot, because the right foot's being obscured by that chair, either your heel needs to come in or your toe needs to go out. So choose one of the two. But I would say the big thing is fix the thoracic extension, because the rack position is wrong, and then from the rest, hopefully it'll sort itself out. So,
do you think he needs to back off the weight a bit while he's sorting this stuff out?
He's moving the bar. It's moving fine. I think he needs to, on his warm-ups is where he really is going to start really honing that stuff in, and then he can make it more solid during his work sets.
Yeah, just come in on a rest day and just play around with something 30 pounds less than your working weight, and just fix it, and then hit it again. So,
okay, cool. Melanie Sotnik is up next. Okay, her video is playing now.
All right, I'm in rep 2 right now. One thing that she's doing that I tend to get on to people about is before she sets her back, she's flexing her back up and then trying to slam it down. I think that's pretty unnecessary. She's already in a good position. Her back has some flexion, and then you just squeeze your belly down and squeeze your chest up while leaving your hips high. She's not setting her back hard enough, and as she pulls, it's rounding out. That's the biggest thing that I'm seeing right there. She needs to take her time getting uncomfortable in the bottom position and really squeezing the crap out of her back. The way I tell people is if you're comfortable right before the bar starts moving, then you're doing it wrong. She needs to be really uncomfortable and think it really sucks because so she's just not setting her back. She's not taking her time and setting her back.
Yeah, I would say the same. I would say be more patient on the floor. I would try and I'll notice this a lot with people who wear, that sort of belt at the front, the tapered belt, to be clear. So when we're trying to say push your belly between your thighs and, really set your back, your stomach, depending on how lean you are, is going to be physically touching your thighs, and you need to make the choice to compress that. So if you're ever dealing with someone who has a lot of belly, it's going to feel weird for them to set it to the area that they need to set it at. So I would say be more patient on the floor, take the belt off, see how that tactile sensation feels of pushing your stomach through, and then put the belt back on. I think the rounding during the reps that's just a consequence of it being a heavy bar. I'm not too worried about that. But at the top, she is trying to do this sort of like scapular retraction thing, shrugging her shoulders up and back. You don't really need to do that. It's kind of helpful, but after a certain point, it's going to be a limiting factor. If you think for a successful deadlift, you have to do an extra shrug at the top end of it. So these seem pretty light for her. So I'd be interested to see what a heavy set looks like.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Nicolas Lis deadlift is next, and we are playing that one. It's not a great view for a form check, but anyway, do your best. These look like they actually might be rack pulls rather than the deadlift.
These are Romanians. That's what these is. Yes.
It looks like he's hitting the safeties though.
No. He might hear something. He's not.
Because he doesn't want to set it on the floor, which, I mean...
Yeah, Rusty, you can take it away from this one. This is a lot of people will come to these seminars and deadlift like this. So. Yeah.
I mean, obviously his hips are way too low. He's not really setting anything. I mean, this weight is way too light if he's able to rep it out like this. I mean, these look like he was trained by a CrossFitter or something. There's a lot going wrong with these.
So first things first, you're going to need to pick the hips up. And then with that, the knees are going to have to come backwards. The bar is going to have to get a little bit closer to your shin. Start there. Don't worry too much about the pull because he can figure out how to put his back into extension already. And then on the descent, just making sure, just find that Phil Meggers video about like lowering the deadlift, but you just look down in between your feet and then drop the bar right on your shoelaces. So push your butt backwards in space, drop the bar down, because he is clipping around his knees. He's going forward and backwards each rep. So that can get really annoying. Nobody wants to have bruised knees. So a higher hip position really should fix just about everything on these.
It's always difficult explaining to people how you bruised your knees. It was from deadlifting, I swear.
Yeah. How'd you bruise the tops of your knees? Like, oh.
My big thing about this is he's not doing the 5 steps. Those 5 steps need to be done very methodically, and that would fix everything. Get the book, read through the steps. These are just normal deadlifts I'd see at Gold's Gym or something.
Yep. Completely agree. Yeah.
So that's the 5 steps to deadlift article you're referring to there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On the starting strength side. Okay. All right. Nicole Starner is the next one coming up.
She's outside. Neat. Okay.
This angle is really weird.
Yeah.
These are really good high bar squats.
Yeah.
These are just a totally different thing.
Yeah,
and it seems like, it looks like a curl bar, or is that a training bar?
No.
It looks like, is that like a short 35-pound bar to me?
Could be.
That's a short bar. Yeah.
That's a short bar, yeah.
So she said she's pretty new to starting strength, so...
okay.
You want to take it, or you want me to?
No, go for it, Rusty. Go for it.
First things first, if you're going to be recording these, do it from a rear oblique. That's probably going to be the easiest for us to be able to coach it online, unless we have a specific thing we're looking for. That's going to be the best one. This weird downward angle, it's really hard to tell a lot of things. I think and again, because of this angle, it looks like her feet are a little bit too close together. And like I said, these are high bar squats. She needs to get that bar a little bit lower, quite a bit lower. But I mean, as far as high bar squats go, I mean, they do look all right. I think she's getting way too deep. She's doing the ass to grass squat. Those are the main things I'm seeing. It's like she's also staging her hips before her knees go forward. She's pushing her hips back and then her knees are coming forward. That's at the same time. But her hip drops are great.
Yeah, I would say the first order of business would be to, change to low bar if you can. If you're dead set on high bar. A few things that are really helpful is that, and I've noticed this for a lot of people, they'll put the bar on top of their hair and on top of a hoodie or on top of a lot of things, and you'll end up having like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of material between yourself and the bar. Fix that, so let your hair fall forward, pick your hoodie up, get the bar on your back, no matter what squat you're doing. It eventually, when this is heavy, that's going to be a nuisance, and you don't want to have to relearn anything. The next thing would be, to break at the hips and the knees at the same time. And then with that, if she's going to be doing high bar, you need to let your knees come more forward. She's sitting backwards a little bit too far, even for a high bar squat. You can get away with it once it's a really low weight, but otherwise, she'll just start leaning backwards a little bit too much. And then, I agree with Rusty on the stance. The stance does look a little bit narrow to me too. So.
If she got that bar before, her hip drive is going to look great.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
She looks like she's doing that weight pretty easily as well. So.
Yes. Yeah. It seems still very warm uppy. So.
Yeah. Okay. Scott Birnley deadlift is next.
Oh, it's big deadlift. There we go.
Yeah.
Got some good music in the background too.
The Sabbath, which they're the greatest band on.
So we'll see how the rest of the set looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every rep he's pulling onto your heels. The one thing that for me personally, I've noticed for a lot of people, pulling on your heels dramatically increases the perception of difficulty because it feels like you really can't, put a lot of force into the bar. Think about keeping your armpits right over the bar the entire time, rather than pulling backwards into it. A lot of people start to set their back, they rock backwards during the whole thing or rock onto their heels. Think about keeping that weight on your midfoot and keeping your armpits right over the bar is what I'd say for that one. But, it's a heavy pull, so, it's working, but it could be a little bit better.
Yeah. I don't think it's really that bad of a pull. I'm watching his setup again because I'm not sure. No, his shins are probably where they need to be.
Yeah, his distance is fine. If you watch his toes on the first rep, it gets a little bit better as the reps go on. Basically, the front of his foot just tips up each time. So
yeah, I see him rocking back on his heels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like you said though, it's a heavy pull. So yeah, I don't see anything too terribly wrong with it other than what you just said.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about his grip width?
I think that's one thing that did jump out at me. I mean, I don't think it's impeding anything. He might want to bring it out maybe a finger width or so. Give a little room for his knees to push out a little harder. But it doesn't look like it's hampering anything.
All right, solid lift.
Yep.
All right. Any other feedback for that one? Or all good?
For Scott Birnley, yeah, I think that it is kind of a consequence of, the nature of heavy deadlifts is that, on reps 2 and 3, he's setting it down closer and closer to his shins, not to midfoot. And it's just kind of exaggerating the whole thing of, making sure that, he's almost pulling behind midfoot. He's really on his heels. So if you need to take a second on these heavy sets, roll the bar slightly more forward or even scoot backwards, that's fine. But you do need an inclined shin angle. If you're starting the third pull and your shins are basically vertical, you're doing a stiff-legged deadlift, and it's still cool. Still do your deadlifts, but it could be a little bit easier for you. So.
Yeah. Then this is one more thing I'm noticing. He could probably set that bar down a lot faster. His speed coming down is pretty slow, and that will wear you out really, really fast. So I think if he thinks of not it's an exaggerated word, but pushing the bar down to his feet instead of just like slowly lowering it, I think that will help him out quite a bit.
So great music, good deadlift. Is that the sum up for
yes,
Scott Birnley?
Yeah, we're just nitpicking, Scott. So.
Stephen Bissett.
Bissett? I don't know. Something like that.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Is that going on your end?
Yep, that's playing. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I just started mine.
First things first is his wrist position, and this could just be a flexibility issue. But if you could see that his wrists are always canted back like this, instead of having the lower portion of his palm on it and having a more neutral wrist, when that weight gets real heavy, that's going to start hurting his wrists, especially if he's pushing into the bar.
Yes, his thumbs are around the bar, so he is completely enclosing it rather than keeping the thumb on top of the bar. I'd like to see your deadlift, Stephen. I don't actually know if you know how to really control your lower back. You're almost initiating this movement by starting to round. It's in a good, relatively extended position at the top, and it's collapsing almost immediately as you go down, which is why you have to be so slow at the bottom to really find that. But, you know, think about rotating your pelvis backwards to get your torso to lean over. And the lower back looks soft through really the entire thing. So make sure that you know how to extend that. There's a bunch of videos on them. Some of the titles are escaping me, but I think it's back extension on the platform is one of them. But do some Superman drills, see if you can extend your lower back and fight for control for that. The wrist thing, widen your grip out, get your thumb around the bar, get your wrist on top of it, and then that should sort itself out. But depth looks good. He's trying to hip drive too, so can't complain too much.
No, I think his to point out something good. I think his knees look pretty good. He's stopping them. But going back to it, he's starting with initiating his hips. He's pushing his hips back first, and then his knees pop forward. So I think that's another thing he needs to focus on. One cue that I've used for people that want to start with their hips and then bend their knees is it only works for guys really, but drop your nuts straight down and then continue sitting back. Generally, that will get your hips and your knees to go at the same time.
Yeah, the one I use is drop your ass between your heels normally. And that one tends to fix people going backwards and forwards, all right? Because we kind of know they're already, when we're standing, they're stacked on top of each other. What I want is for them to stay stacked on top of each other. You just have to move your knees around it. So that's another one I like. It's weird seeing all these people's basements. I feel like I'm in their homes. Normally, all the form checks that I'll do, they're in gyms, but
or on a balcony 20 floors up.
Or on a very interesting balcony.
Okay, so the last one is Tom Jardine. This was quite an interesting video. This is the first one that came through actually, and
most manly lift out of all.
This guy is a bit of a monster. So it's playing now.
Yeah.
I don't know where this guy is, but or how he got this thing set up.
I love this. Like 0 to Arnold and Predator. Where is this at?
Yeah.
I think the next video of him is probably going to be him running up a mountain to the top of an icy peak or something and shadow boxing. And
depth is good. Hip drive looks good.
Yeah.
How much do you reckon that log weighs?
Oh, man. Depends on the type of wood.
With how fast it's moving in space.
Yeah.
145, 150 pounds.
Yeah.
That's how I think.
It's mahogany.
It's just pure teak. It weighs 600 pounds. No, that's fun though. It's fun. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a good squat. It's a good squat, But I have, I used to mess around a lot with the pit and with my college's outdoors club, and we used to do stupid stuff like this. The best solution that we were able to find for doing giant log things like that was to loop some straps around it, and you can hold it. You can hold the straps above your head like this, almost in an overhead position, and it'll stay on your back pretty well. Yeah, you can carry giant logs that way for fun. Or you can make a it's fun.
But it's practical aspect. Looping straps. I've had to do this with some older people that cannot hold a bar on their back. Put some straps around and have them hold them here, and that generally works.
Do you guys have a safety squat bar at Wichita?
We do, but that thing has its issues. I think just because of how much bulk goes everywhere. It really messes with the center of gravity. I don't know. If I can avoid using it, I have yet to put a client on one. Generally, we could find ways around it. And I mean, I only seen 2 or 3 people now using it, and that's just because they just have no flexibility in the shoulders and they're older.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is the end of the form check section. Finishing off with an interesting video. Hopefully, Tom will show us how he's deadlifting. That'd be awesome.
I want to see more from him. I genuinely do.
I do as well. I hope he does a live stream and we can see all the other exercises. Yeah. He's probably pressing rocks, giant boulders above his head, and So we've got a few questions from the punters as well, so to go through. So we've got 4 questions from Matt Salmon from Reddit. So the first question's for Alex. What was the hardest part of getting starting strength certified or starting strength coach certified? Can he describe the process?
So the hardest part for me, that was probably finding the time to study and get coaching hours in while I was still working a full-time corporate job. So my background before this was corporate real estate. So, I did into corporate real estate. I managed a bunch of, large apartment complexes in Virginia Beach area. And I would probably have to work, about like 10, 11-ish hours a day. Having to find time to work with my online clients, do all my form checks, and then still study and, still get physical eyes on people in a gym. I would say that was the hardest part. If you're younger and you have free time, go for it. I've talked to a few people who have done it through college. I think Alex Beasley was one. She was one of the first SSCs I met. She said that she coached a lot of people just inter-college gym. She would go up to anybody and just start coaching them. That's great, but if you're working a full-time job, I would say that was definitely the hardest part for me. As for the entire process, it was my 23rd birthday. And I normally give myself goals for the year of what to do. And I was just watching, one of the starting strength videos, and they were like, hey, this whole process is really hard. Blah, 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 blah. There's the whole spiel. And I was like, I'll set that goal for my year. And then I did that. So yeah, it took a year for me completely. I had been coaching grappling sports for about 6 years prior to that. So I knew how to coach already. It was just getting a good understanding of barbells moving in space, understanding the material, and just getting hours in. So.
And you're going through it at the moment, Rusty. Where are you at with it all?
The practical aspect is, I think, is a lot easier for me. And I agree with him. Sitting down and actually just studying is the hardest part for me, especially with how busy I can get up at the gym. Because, I'm coaching people full time, and then I'm helping with all of the online content. That, of course, right now things have slowed down, of course, with what's going on. But it's still, I'm still staying busy with the gym. So it's really hard to just sit down and be like, okay, I need to read the blue book again. And I need to really focus on certain parts that I know I'm weak in again. I need to go through the gray book and make sure my programming is on point. Doing all that is the hardest part for me.
Yeah. But, one thing that I would say is that, I've had a decent bit of people reach out to me and be like, hey, blah, 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 how'd you do the whole starting strength thing, yada, yada, from the Virginia Beach area or even just kind of all over the place on the Reddit. I would say that the most helpful thing for me was after deciding to start the process, reading the blue book and the gray book once, and then not going back to it until you have a very thorough understanding of anatomy and mechanics.
Yeah.
Because, you can read the thing 8 times if you want to. You'll just know what exactly is in there very thoroughly, but it won't give you the requisite information that you need to understand why it was written the way it was written. So, going far away from it and then coming back to it was the most helpful thing for me. So,
yeah, there's an app called Complete Anatomy. If anybody is trying to get their SSC, I think that you could get Netter's book and go through that and learn anatomy that way. But this app, Complete Anatomy, I honestly can't remember how much it was. I think it was about $50. But you can peel back different layers of muscle. It's all 3D. You click on a muscle, it tells you what it does. You click on a thing and actually shows it in motion. I think that app is invaluable for learning anatomy. So that's my big suggestion for anybody that's trying to learn anatomy for their SSC is get that app. That is an invaluable app.
Okay, cool. So Matt Salmon from Reddit again. This is a question for me. He says, I have a salaried desk job, but I'm thinking about quitting to build my own apps. I have some good ideas. How hard is it to build apps? Do you still have a salaried desk job, Matt? That's probably what I first want to ask you. Whether you have good ideas or not, I don't know. Everyone seems to have a good idea for an app. The percentage of apps that actually make money is incredibly small. I would probably start by doing a bit of research on the kind of app that you want to make and seeing who the competitors are in that space. There's a couple of websites. There's one called App Annie, which collate a lot of data about the usage of apps and, where the apps are ranking in terms of their grossing on the charts and things like that. And you can start to work out sort of roughly how much these apps are making. It really depends what kind of app I think you want to build. I would say learning how to code is a great skill. I would definitely start doing it. There's a lot of websites around like Udemy, and I started with Code Academy, which is pretty much learning how to code for a complete beginner. And that's how I learned JavaScript, which is what I use to build the Starting Strength app with. I think I'll probably just start learning how to code, and don't think about starting to build your apps yet. Don't quit your day job would be my advice, unless you have a lot of savings. If you have a lot of savings, like a couple of years worth, fine, take a punt. But I think if you've got a wife and kids and not a lot of savings, it's probably not the best risk to take at this point in time. So, but feel free to, if you want to contact me, send me a DM on Reddit, and we can chat a bit more about it via Skype. But I think it's about the best way I could answer that question. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Right on, man.
I have a lot of friends who have launched apps, not really in kind of the fitness space at all. If that's the area that he's working in, they have treated it kind of like how I was just talking about with doing a full-time job and then going for the whole coaching thing. They've treated it as a second unpaid job, so they've continued to do whatever they're going to do, and then they'll spend almost every of their spare waking minutes kind of on their passion project. So, if you're ready to do that, that sounds like fun. So.
The other way you could sort of look at it as well. I mean, you could probably go on to somewhere like Upwork, which is a website for freelancers, and if you have a fairly clear idea of what it is you want to build, you can actually pay people to build it for you, and that's assuming that you have some savings, and this is not going to bankrupt you if it doesn't work. Spend what you can afford to lose, I think. But that's probably another option as well if you don't want to quit your job but you have this great idea that you want to see come to light. Okay, the next question is for Rusty. Same again, Matt Salmon from Reddit for Rusty. In the last video he posted where he was cleaning, there were rows of dumbbells visible. Does anyone in the gym use them? What for? Does Rip set the dogs on you if you start using them?
No. The dumbbells, they have their place in programming. They do. But chances are you're not going to need them for a while. Accessory lifts are a thing, and that's how they're treated. They're treated as accessory lifts. People use them all the time. I haven't used them in a while. I kind of got sick and my numbers dropped real hard, but I was doing some dumbbell presses as accessory work. But they get used all the time. I mean, if they weren't being used, they probably wouldn't be in the gym.
Didn't Rip actually design them and got them custom made? I seem to recall that story.
Yeah, all of them are custom made. There's no telling how much money is over there.
Okay.
Rusty, what's your Instagram? I'm trying to find you, and I clicked on a Rusty Holcomb, and it's definitely not you. I'll say that much.
Oh man,
it's email Rusty, and it says some kind of official hip hop photographer.
Yeah, that's
hip hop. He looks like a crazy hippie. So he looks like.
My training Instagram would be rust_strength_training.
There we go.
It's time to update that handle a bit, I think.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to find that.
Yeah, rust_.
All right, next.
I program dumbbell work for almost everyone who has access to them. They're very low cost. If you're figuring out how to do something with dumbbells that's going to actually interfere with your next training session's work, good for you. It's pretty hard to do. So you can have fun with it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Matt Salmon again. I've recently started using hook grip for deadlift. It feels awful. Is there some trick to getting it right, or do I just have to suck it up?
Suck it up, man. I don't know. What's your opinion on that, Alex? I mean, hook grip hurts. You get used to it, though. I mean, I hook grip every single deadlift I do, and I don't like doing supinated, but that's just me. I have a couple of clients that don't want to mess around with hook grip, and that's what we do whenever that bar starts rolling out of their hands. We do overhand as long as we can, but the whole you can tape your thumbs. That'll help save your skin a little bit. But I've never had a problem with it. Maybe I'm just not deadlifting heavy enough. I don't know.
That's probably it. I tape my thumbs. I tape for deadlifts. I over under I supinate. For cleans, you can't get away without hook gripping it, and then for that I have to tape my thumbs pretty thoroughly. But for me, it just feels like my thumbnail is going to rip off. It's not pleasant. So
I think I've been doing hook grip for so long, and I've done so much Olympic lifting. It just doesn't really affect me that much anymore. Even my rack pulls, I'll use hook grip up until I get to my actual work set. So, I mean, they don't bug me that much anymore. But, I have some clients where I'm like, okay, I'm going to just start them off with hook grip. And they're like, I hate this. And I'm like, all right, we won't do it anymore.
Yeah, I think when I started hook gripping, I just did it for my warm-up sets, or just like one warm-up set, and then went back to mixed, and then just sort of, linearly progressed my way up. But yeah, it hurts. It feels like, I mean, when I started, I felt like I was crushing my thumb bones, but I don't know, maybe got weak programmer fingers. So
if someone's wanting to learn how to hook grip, you don't immediately just, okay, hook grip this work set. You build up to it. I have them hook grip all their warm ups, and then on their work set, then we'll do something different. But yeah, I mean, if I'm starting off a client, and let's say they're somebody who is very serious about, I want to lift as much heavy weight as possible. Personalities, you kind of have to judge who can hang, but I'll start them off with hook grip, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Interesting. All right. David Otter, if retaining muscle mass as we age is critical to our long-term health, should I, as an older, he's 63, and skinnier 144 pounds, lifter, prioritize hypertrophy over absolute strength gains? To put this in practical terms, should I shift my rep range from 3 to 5 to 8 to 12 with an appropriate drop in weight on the bar?
Rusty, you go first on this one. I'm interested to hear your response.
My response is no. I mean, if you do the program and you get your calories in and you get your protein in, you're going to start putting on weight. You're going to get stronger. The whole hypertrophy thing. I mean, we do at the seminars. There's an entire lecture about all of that, about the rep range, and 3x5 works. That's my opinion on that. What do you think, Alex?
I think his question has a ton of assumptions in it, and I think that's kind of the root error in the thinking. It's that either hypertrophy, it almost makes it sound as if hypertrophy is better or worse in a certain rep range, which is very debatable currently. And then given that as well, it's that strength would also be kind of debatable, or a strength increase would be debatable given on rep range. So like, even if you just imagine an alternate bizarro universe where Mark Ripito really likes the number 9 and everything's 3 sets of 9, people would still be getting stronger at their relative 3 sets of 9. The principles of programming of what you would do, let's say whenever you stall, that would be beneficial for you, they would still exist and they would still be the same. So I don't really think that the question makes very much sense in the manner of, let's say you did switch to 3 sets of 8 to 12, that you would receive a dramatic increase in hypertrophy, more so than you would have just adding an equivalent number of reps through sets of 3 or sets of 5 or sets of whatever. So long as you're going sufficiently close to failure, I think that's really, really fine. But I wouldn't say completely abandon strength, but definitely don't neglect hypertrophy work if he's already an advanced lifter. I forget, Mick, you remember some of his initial questions, right? Because he asked some questions last week. Is he still in his LP, right? Or is he? I
couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
But at 5'10" and 144, you'd probably assume he hasn't finished his LP yet.
Yeah.
That the thing that sets me off. Like he's not following the program, and he needs to gain a lot of weight.
Yeah. Definitely don't gain weight too quickly, especially given your age. You want to skew that towards lean mass as much as you can. Be not cautious about it, but don't be like, oh, this is my perfect excuse to add, a box of Twinkies a day. But I would definitely do your LP. And if at the tail end of your LP, you're like, hey, for some reason I want to switch to 10s on everything, you have fun with that and see how long that lasts, just so long as you're still training. So
my big thing about it is I want to be under the bar the least amount of time possible. And, when you start adding onto everything, then it starts sucking pretty quick. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, go ahead, Mick.
I was going to say sets of 8 to 12 suck. They absolutely suck.
I've only been able to squat maybe about like once a week or so, and I've just been going in, doing a bunch of sets of 10s, a bunch of 15s, just having a blast, man. I love the high rep stuff.
Good for you.
Yeah. A heavy set of 5, I'm like, oh God, no, please no.
If I could get away with going in the gym and doing 10 heavy singles, I'd be happy. I'd much rather do like low numbers instead of like a set of 8, set of 9. Nah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I think my one of the PRs I was the most proud of was the first time I hit 135 for 10 on the overhead press. And then the first time that I hit 225 for 20 on squat, I was like, that's a fun PR to hit.
That's
very fun.
That's just that's torture.
John, and he did a set of 20. God dang, how much was it? It was over 300. And it was painful for me to watch it. It hurt my soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I've never done a set of 20 on squat. And
they're just fun, man. They're just fun. It feels like you're texting a lot of boxes. You're getting your conditioning in, you're getting some strength work in.
I talk to God. I need to, leave my body.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think anyone who says that you don't get much cardiovascular benefits from doing barbell training has never done a set of 12 close to failure. So Dave's got another question. He's acquired some barbell and plates in order to continue lifting at home. And he says when he's not working out, he likes to leave the bar set up for a light deadlift. And he will try to pull 3 perfect reps anytime I happen to walk by. Is this potentially valuable for anything other than practicing form? And if so, what would you recommend is the amount of weight on the bar as a percentage of his heavy deadlift work set weight? And how many reps should he try and accumulate throughout the day?
That's interesting.
It is. So this is a strategy that a lot of people in the gymnastics world use called greasing the groove. And it is very successfully used on a lot of bodyweight things. So let's say that, if you're in a house with a chin-up bar or some dips or some rings, you set a timer on, whatever you have for every 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to go and you're going to do, 2 muscle ups, or you're going to do 5 ring dips, or you're going to do, some amount of chin-ups. And you just do that through the day as much as you can conveniently, so that let's say your weekly volume goes up dramatically for skill heavy movements. The deadlift isn't particularly skill heavy. I don't think you'll be getting too much of a benefit outside of it, really, just than doing it. I think if you're going to do something like that, like choose a chin up or choose a set of 10 push-ups or something like that, have a little more fun with it. Because the deadlift volume can really sneak up on you. Because if you've been doing the LP as written and you're doing, 3 sets of deadlift a week, and then all of a sudden you up it to doing 30 sets of deadlift a week, you're going to have an odd time in the beginning on the on-ramp with volume. So,
yeah, my 2 cents on that is pulling a perfect deadlift at 135 pounds and pulling a perfect deadlift at 315 pounds are 2 completely different things. So it's just practicing pulling a deadlift at 135 pounds. That's not going to translate to whenever that bar starts getting real heavy. So I genuinely believe that what he's doing is kind of a waste of time. Yeah, but I agree with you on skill based things that could be a benefit. I mean, I've been doing pistol competitions right now, and that's a big thing we do, or that I do, is a lot of dry firing. I'm getting those motor units down, right? So you just sit in your living room, watch the TV, and you're dry firing. You're getting that motor unit down. translating that into weightlifting, I don't think it does translate. So he needs to get used. He needs to get to where he can pull heavy weights perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe instead of doing these deadlifts, he should be going to his fridge and drinking some milk or eating some protein or something like that instead.
Yeah, milk.
Yeah, anytime you do a set of deadlifts, eat a protein bar. Leave the protein bars next to the deadlift setup, and then just do one and one. But I think if you're stuck at home and you are itching to do some sort of constant through the day thing, pick something from the gymnastics realm. You're 5'10" and 144 pounds. You'll probably have some fun with those things, So I don't know, try and learn the front lever or something like that. Do some chin ups every time you go walk under a door frame, something like that. More so than trying to pull 1,000 deadlifts through the day. So.
Yeah, and doing a whole bunch of chin-ups will give you a thick back, and that's always awesome. So,
What was the thing you were telling me you did the other day, Alex? Didn't you say you did 200 chin-ups?
I did 279 pull-ups in an hour.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. So I have a rock climbing hangboard set up, and literally it was just like chalk and some music, and I would just do sets of 3 and then a few sets of 6, and I just alternated between sets of 3 and 6 for an hour. And it was a little spiritual of an experience at the end, but it was pretty fun. So,
what did you reward yourself with at the end?
I've never been that bored.
my lats were incredibly sore for a few days. It felt like I had just been hit by a truck. I was like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "This is so weird." But
like this.
Yeah, it's overhand. It's pretty wide. So I was using a 1-inch ledge, so you can get one good finger pad on it. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I
with doing that, but hook grip sucks.
Yes.
I like this
fine. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I've been climbing for quite some time, so it's just like that type of finger pain is it's fine for me, but it feels like my whole nail bed is just going to pop off of my hand. I don't really like that. If you ever go to a rock climbing gym, you'll meet a lot of people who do crack climbing, which is where you jam your whole hand physically in a crack, and the backs of their hands will just be like this weird turtle leather, basically, just from jamming in there and putting their whole body weight just on their skin. Those guys could probably do hook grip and not really complain, but the rest of us.
Have you watched the documentary Free Solo?
Yeah, it's a very good one. Mm-hmm.
Man, good stuff. But man, it makes me feel queasy at times.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been it's called the Free Rock Project, but there's basically a yearly film festival of people doing cool rock climbing and cool outdoor stuff every year. So there's a wealth of really good content on YouTube of just guys going out and doing absolutely crazy stuff, So it's a good way to kill an afternoon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. All right. Well, that's the end of the questions. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm having a lot of fun doing this, though, man.
Yeah, no, it's been good. And we've been getting a lot of good feedback as well. So if you're out there and if you've got a question for us, feel free to email me at support@strength.club. And we'll probably do some more of these video form checks. So, keep sending them through as well to that email. And, hopefully we can get around to it. And if you're lifting any weird stuff like logs or boulders or people or zombies or whatever, just send that through as well, and we'll take a look at it.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks a lot, fellas.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.